So, will Governor Cuomo once again wiggle out of trouble, or did he finally dig his own political grave? Let's meet tonight's party panel. We got a lot to talk about. Independent Women's Forum senior policy analyst and the Federalist contributor Inez Stepman is here, along with comedian and host of Part of the Problem. It's a podcast. It's fantastic. Dave Smith. Woo, great hair. And Democrat strategist and former DNC advisor Kevin Walling. They've all got a lot to say in an entirely new way, and I'm very excited about tonight. All right, Inez, I will start with you. Have we reached the moment where we've seen the end of Andrew Cuomo's career, or, as I asked a couple seconds ago, will he wiggle out of this?
Well, he's lost his biggest ally in wiggling out of things, and that was, the coverage around Donald Trump. Right now that the bad orange man has exited the stage, I think he's going to find it harder to get the kind of, frankly, media collusion that he's had. I mean, this is not a news story. It's, Janice Dean, among others, have done a fantastic job of exposing this. This is not new information so much as it is new that the media is reporting on this information. So if he's lost the media, who were his biggest fans for the last almost year, he may not have any tight corners to wiggle out of at this point.
So, Dave, does it reach obstruction of justice? And if so, what is the proper punishment here?
Well, if the allegations that he intentionally misled about the evidence in nursing homes and kept that from being public because he was worried about investigation under the Trump administration, then that is undeniably obstruction of justice. Either way, I mean, the crimes are clear. Look, the guy assumed the role of a dictator over the last year. All of these governors, Cuomo especially, has behaved in a completely unconstitutional manner. The only question is whether there's political will, in the same sense that, like James Clapper, lied to Congress, right? We all know that, but there's no political will to prosecute him. Now, if he had been a part of, say, the Trump transition team, he'd be sitting in a jail cell. Everybody knows that, right? So the only question is whether there's political will to prosecute or not. I don't know about that, but there's no question crimes have been committed. But as Inez pointed out, I think in many ways the bigger story here is that this guy, while he was taking these unbelievably disastrous moves. I mean, sending COVID-positive patients into nursing homes. Everyone with a brain knew that this was crazy when he was doing it, and he was lionized and lauded by the entire media class, given puff piece interviews by his brother that he was the hottest thing since Michael Avenatti, according to most of the press. And it really says something about who these people hold up.
Well, it also says something about us, Kevin, because I think now there is an appetite for constant political bloodletting, which I don't have a problem with if it means actual accountability for politicians in every level of government from any party. I don't have a problem with that, but is this just blood sport, or does the governor really need to go to prison?
No, I think he's in serious trouble, Kennedy. And I think, hopefully we're getting to the point with this, the COVID crisis, that we're moving with 2 million vaccinations or so a day, now to the point of accountability, where we can look back over this last year and see what governors did, see what the federal government did, and hold those people responsible. If there was gross negligence, if there was a cover-up, which it seems like there is in Albany with Governor Cuomo, then he needs to be held accountable. And I'm the Democrat on the panel. I want to see accountability with this in full transparency when it comes to Governor Cuomo.
I've heard that from Democrats on this show all week, and it makes me wonder, is anyone safe? When you look, and that's why, and Dave would probably agree with me on this, as libertarians, like, we don't get invested in politicians. That's a really stupid thing to hitch your wagon to someone's political star, because human beings can do very dumb things. And here is Andrew Cuomo, who, really thought that he could get away with something. And I look at this, and he really was the gilded star of the Democrat Party for months and months.
I mean, Kennedy, he wrote a book about the COVID crisis while it was going on in his response.
Yeah, and he said incompetent government kills people. His incompetent government killed people. There has to be some accountability there. Well, here on the West Coast, West Side, the campaign to recall California Governor Gavin Newsom is speeding across the finish line. They've got 1.7 million signatures already. The organizers say they have 200,000 more than they need to get the recall on the ballot, but they're going to keep gathering more until the March 17th deadline in case the governor tries any legal shenanigans to get some of those signatures tossed, which he will. Yesterday, Newsom unveiled a $9.5 billion coronavirus relief bill with $600 payments to more than 5.7 million Californians. The timing has to be a total coincidence, right? A bribe to keep himself in office? Could it be too little, too late? Look at that hair. Californians can't turn down that hair, Inez.
You know, it's a time-honored tradition to bribe the people with their own money, and that's definitely what's going on here. By the way, a shout out to my husband's aunt, Heather. She's the OG of gathering signatures. She's been doing it for a very long time, the old-fashioned way, going door to door. But look,
I would like to give a shout out to Warren G., who's an actual OG. Hi, Warren. He loves this show. Okay, go ahead, Annette. Sorry. As you were.
No, I mean, let's just keep doing the shout outs forever. I think that's better news than anything that Governor Newsom has done. But he's vulnerable because of two primary issues. One is, of course, the lockdowns, but the most important piece underneath that is the schools largely remain closed in California. That is engendering a real backlash. And, you know, at some point, even Democrats, even a left-leaning state that supports Democrats, you know, he's making the state unlivable, which is why the majority of Californians in some recent polls say they are considering leaving the state, right? And the second issue is crime, which has a lot to do with the DAs in San Francisco and LA. But, you know, I think those two issues are making the state unlivable, and that's why he's actually vulnerable to recall.
Yeah, don't go to Texas. Man, the Texas storm has been the best thing for California in years. And it's awful, don't get me wrong. So, Dave, can you visualize a world where you've got two of the most powerful and visible governors in the Democratic Party in the country, both in prison?
Well, I mean, probably not. But if there's any justice in this country, they both should be, along with all the other mini, tyrant dictator governors. They should all be charged with crimes against humanity. I mean, I hope they are. But short of that, I'll root for a recall election against Gavin Newsom. But, this is, look, if you have with any shred of seriousness believe that we have a constitution and a bill of rights in this country, then there have to be some type of consequences. And even if it's just the voters voting these guys out, I mean, how can you support one of these politicians they're laughing at you when the cameras go off? Newsom's out there having dinner with no mask on. He doesn't believe any of this stuff. None of them do. There have to be some type of consequences if we're going to keep any semblance of a free society.
That's a really good point, because it's not just the optics of, whether it's an LA County supervisor or the governor of California not obeying the laws that they are projecting onto all of their citizens. That's only part of it. Kevin, it's not just the French Laundry dinner where they spent thousands of dollars on wine and no one was in masks, and everyone else's kids are home. Women aren't working because they're staying home with their children. The economy in California has come to a grinding halt. So you have the problem with unemployment. There's not a lot of correct public assistance. Schools are closed. But then you have the pre-pandemic problems, like the problems with all of the utilities in this state causing wildfires and the homelessness that no one has an answer for. All of that adds up to bad news for Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, it's true, Kennedy. I mean, it's all compounding factors, right? So I think fundamentally Governor Newsom is safe. It's a fairly Democratic state. He hasn't seen a challenge from his left flank, which actually took out Gray Davis, as you remember, back in the 90s, also facing issues with utilities, actually, and brownouts throughout the state. But I think the governor's fundamentally safe. I do think it's problematic, to Dave's point and Inez's point, that the optics alone of him having that dinner in a closed space, the optics of not opening schools on time. I'm hopeful that this bill that you mentioned at the outset that's working its way through Sacramento will actually deliver resources to the schools, and that's something that he can campaign on during this recall. I think it's, like I said, though, an uphill battle to take out Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, no, and I think people have reached their limit. I really do. And if they see that there's a viable alternative, they may take it right now, because Arnold Schwarzenegger was great for California. I was there in 2003. I hosted a game show with gubernatorial candidates, including Mary Carey, the adult entertainer, and Gary Coleman, God rest his soul. All right, the panel returns later for a big game. It is game night. And coming up, aside from that, should we pay killers to stop killing people? One activist claims that's the best way to lower the murder rate. Would it really work? Plus, President Biden's agenda frightfully expensive. It could cost Americans thousands of dollars and even millions of jobs. But which of his policies are more damaging to the economy? Brian Brenberg breaks it down next.